So when I opened the clinic, it was in the middle of COVID, which was like the worst time to launch a high proximity face-to-face healthcare service. Could not be worse. Like doors opening for the first time. We had the masks, the face shields, the gloves. We even had at one point like hygiene UV lights that were used in between each treatment to try and cleanse the room. We also ended up torching most of the plants that we have in the clinic because you put the UV light on the plant shrivels. So that was a learning that we had early on. So when we opened doors, we were very concerned about the way in which someone would move through the clinic. How much time would they spend where? What would the journey look like when they went downstairs to the treatment room, back up? Actually, before we opened, we did dry runs where we would have a fake customer come in. We would actually watch them move through the clinic all the way into the treatment room and back out of the treatment room. And we didn't realize is that experience actually should have happened before they came in the door. So all of that communication around what to expect, what happens when the customer, patient, could have actually self-directed. They could have made decisions for themselves based on what we in theory would have told them before they came in. And so we invested all this time in the in-clinic experience, but actually a huge amount of that was expectations management before and after the patient came in. And so that sort of communication layer, not your appointment is next Thursday. They know their appointment is next Thursday. Like they made the appointment, of course they know. They often paid for the appointment, so they know that happened before Thursday. So the question is, how do you get them to almost self-direct? And I think actually airlines do a really good job of this. They don't do a really good job of many other things, but they do a really good job of this, right? So you have a passenger who knows when to check in, what to bring, what not to bring. When someone gets to the airport, they almost self-serve all the way through onboarding. They have a few go through security here, go through security there, but they are very well informed of that experience. And there's also consistency, right, across all the airports that you go to. So in healthcare, you have this enormous moving target of sometimes you'll fill in your intake forms beforehand. Sometimes you'll fill in your intake forms there. Sometimes you'll do both because they have different intake forms. Sometimes you'll be asked this in clinic. Sometimes you'll be asked that in clinic. We didn't realize the amount to which and the extent to which we could move or front load all of that learning for the patient. And that required a total rethinking of the intake flow. It was no longer about clinical forms. Clinical forms was an admin item. It was the clinical experience. It wasn't the customer experience. So we had to do a lot of work to make that smoother so that patients coming into the practice had a really good sense of, here's what I'm here to do, here's what I should expect, and here's how long I'll be here, here are the questions I might have, and doing all that in advance of them arriving, really important. So that was one of the big takeaways. The second one was actually on the way out. So the number of patients that walked out of our clinic without a next appointment was absolutely mind-blowing. Now, some cases, that's actually a really good thing. They had a healthcare problem, they came in, it was resolved, and they left. Happy days. Like, nothing is better in the world of healthcare than someone having a problem and leaving without that problem. But oftentimes, you have chronic conditions, you have follow-up appointments, you have next appointments in the course of a treatment. All of that stuff is absolutely critical to maintain. Keep patients on track so they don't slowly drift away. And so for us, what we found is that a lot of patients would get to the reception on the way out, and life is busy, and they say, I need a few days. I need 24 hours. Oh, I need a week to figure out when I'm next available. Or I'm traveling next week. Oh, my daughter is this, my son is that. I might have an issue with work. I might have a conflict.